Okay, good evening everyone. Given it's a couple of minutes past 7, we'll get underway. There's still a few people joining us. So if you haven't already, please just register your attendance by putting your name and organisation in the chat function. And we'll get underway. So John, if I can pass over to you just to kick us off, that would be fantastic.
Good evening everybody. I'm John Wolfe, currently Chairman of the Hampshire Cricket Board. Good evening and welcome to the AGM. Thank you for turning out in such numbers. I've had an indication that there'll be a lot of people on the call tonight. And for those of you who've been to AGMs at the Aegeus Bowl, you will know that this is the point at which I invite everybody to come and have a drink with me after the meeting. So in light of the numbers who are attending tonight, Ben, I can only say thank you very much for fixing this up by Zoom. My introductory remarks for the meeting have been circulated by with the papers. I don't intend to go through them again, but just please bear in mind there are 2 or possibly 2.5 parts to the meeting. There's the formal business, which Ben will take us through. Then there are some important updates when that part of the meeting has been closed about important matters coming up, and Ben and principally Simon Jones will take us through those. And then there is also a prize draw. So please hang in there to the end in case you come out as a winner. And just finally, Ben, thanks to you and particularly to Rob Pfeiffer for arranging for the technology. I think we're all very grateful to you for that. So enjoy the evening, folks. And Ben, over to you to run proceedings.
Thanks, John. That's great. So just before we get underway, as John's alluded to there or mentioned, for those that have been present at previous AGMs, we tend to split the meeting in 2, and we're going to do the same again this year. I think it works quite well. First half for the formal AGM, as John says, and we don't anticipate that taking any longer than half an hour. So the second half an hour will consist of a couple of presentations, which we hope you will find of use. And I'm pleased to welcome a couple of special guests who are going to take us through those presentations. Firstly, Matt Camp. He's going to present on the Slam, which is a new exciting competition which is coming to Hampshire this year. And then secondly, Neil Higginson from the HCB is joining us, and Neil is going to give us some information on funding available to clubs this season, and also touch on some of the COVID guidance. Just as a bit of a warning, the information regarding the funding will be relatively brief, to be honest, this evening. And that's predominantly because it's hot off the press. HCB are in the process, or have been in the process of putting that together, and have just recently announced to county boards what is going to be available to clubs this year. But we did want to bring it up and put it on the agenda for this evening, so it gives you as clubs opportunity to get your thinking caps on and start to think about how you can best use that funding that's going to be available to us, available to you, I should say. And equally with the COVID agenda item, we're still receiving a number of queries around the COVID guidance. So we just found it was worth touching on the sort of the key bits within the guidance for your benefit. Couple of housekeeping points. Now, I'm sure we're all pretty au fait with using Zoom by now, but just in case we're not, that was very timely. If we can ensure that all mics are muted, and you enter your name, like I've said many times already, into the chat to register your attendance, as well as your club and organisation you're representing. So we have that record, but more importantly, we can do the prize draw at the end of the meeting, as John says, and we can put you in that. And there's 3 £100 serious cricket vouchers up for grabs, but we will keep you hanging on to the end to do that. Also, at various points during the main business of the AGM, we will be asking you as members to approve certain elements, and we're going to take advantage of the technology that Zoom provides. So at appropriate points, we will invite you to select an approval option to approve certain elements, as I say, but we'll give you the heads up as and when you need to do that. And then lastly, we just invite you to put any questions you have throughout the course of the evening into the chat box, and we'll pause at certain points of the agenda to try and answer those for you. And equally, if you do have any questions regarding the topics that will come up after the formal business, particularly around the COVID guidance, if there's anything that you're unsure about and you would like clarity on from either Simon or Neil, then please put that in as soon as you can. That will give Simon an opportunity to collate those questions, which just might help speed things up slightly. So yeah, feel free to put those through as we put those on as we go. Okay, so hopefully you can see the agenda there in front of you. Prior to this evening, you should have received the papers for this evening. Depending on when you've registered, you would have received them at the start of the week or earlier on this morning. Included in that email was the agenda for tonight, as I say, excuse me, minutes of the 10th AGM, the 2019-2020 annual report, the 2019-20 accounts, as well as John's introductory statement. So without further ado, we'll go on to item 1, apologies for absence. Probably partly due to the fact that, so due to the way in which we asked member clubs to register for the AGM, we haven't received any apologies from member clubs. However, we have received apologies from Tony Oxley, who's Hampshire Cricket Board Director, Emma Cowdrill, member of the development team, and Steve Veer, Southern Premier League Chairman. Item 2 on the agenda is minutes of the 10th AGM, which took place on the 16th of July 2020. Again, you would have received those in the email. Hopefully you've had a chance to have a quick look through them. If there are any matters arising, if you could just put those in the chat bar now, and I'll just pause for a few seconds to give people the opportunity to do that. And Rob, can I just ask you to keep an eye on that, because in my view I can't see the chat bar, unfortunately. So
yeah, we'll do.
If you just let me know if we give it a few seconds for anybody to do that. No, anything through, Rob?
No, nothing there.
Okay, excellent. In that case, we just need to ask you to approve the minutes of the 10th AGM. And as I say, we're going to do that by putting up a question in front of you, which should appear now. And if you can just choose the appropriate option to approve those, please.
Ah, now we have a problem, Ben. I think someone's logged in. Is that Cookie? Might have to come back to that, Ben, for a second. Just give me a second.
Okay. In that case, we will move swiftly on. I was very confident about the technology as well. Okay, so we'll move on to the annual report, and we'll hopefully come back to approve those. If not, we've got a plan B in place if the technology doesn't work. Again, the annual report was circulated with the rest of the papers. And given the impact of COVID on all of our activities last year, we've decided not to produce a detailed report like we've done in previous years. So I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time presenting on this. You would have seen in the report, if you've had an opportunity to look through it, that we've presented what's been delivered in the form of numbers and infographics rather than more detailed case studies that we would have done in the past. However, what I do want to highlight is the significant achievements of member clubs over the course of last year. When we went into lockdown back in March, there was genuine concerns whether clubs, across the country would be able to survive financially. And I'm pleased to say, through the hard work of club volunteers such as yourselves across the county, over £865,000 was raised in the form of grants, so clubs making grant applications to the HCB, Sport England and government. So it was a great effort, but what really impressed me was the number of clubs and club members that did their own fundraising, not just to benefit their own club, but to benefit their local communities and charities. And what we tried to do in the annual report and in the map that you can see on the screen, hopefully, is just shine a bit of a light on some of those clubs that undertook some of that work and some of that fundraising. So I'm sure there's clubs listening this evening that don't appear on that list, but did do a lot of great work in terms of fundraising for charity and for their own benefit. So apologies if you don't appear on that list, but as I say, I did just want to highlight those clubs that we were aware of. And I think it's fair to say, not only did we survive financially, or did clubs survive financially, but they made the most of what was left of the cricket season when restrictions eased in July or whenever it was. Again, a bit confused with the various stages. But we know from the information that we received that over 600 open age fixtures were played during that period, which was an absolutely fantastic effort by all involved, given the COVID protocols that had to be put in place before any game could be played. So a massive thank you from everybody at HCB for all the effort that was put in and getting games played. It was great to see. And then lastly, the last thing I wanted to touch on in terms of the annual report was just schools cricket. We were on for a record year, as I think John put either in the opening remarks in the annual report or in his statement. But yeah, we were due for a bit of a bumpy year as far as schools cricket was concerned until COVID hit in March. But despite COVID bringing a halt to that, we did still manage to engage over 6,000 participants in over 100 schools. And clearly we hope that has benefited and will benefit member clubs in the form of All-Stars cricket registrations and also junior club members. I will just pause there in the hope that Rob has managed to rectify the technology and no, put me on the spot there.
No, I'm going to have to leave the meeting and come back. So if you can just give me a few minutes and see if I can.
Okay.
Hopefully it doesn't end it for everybody.
Okay, in which case we'll move on and we'll attempt to come back to Rob in a bit. And I'm now going to pass over to Jeff Rhodes to present the accounts for October 2019 to September 2020. Jeff, if you're unable to mute yourself, I'll now pass over to you.
Thank you, Ben. Good evening, everyone, and what a beautiful evening it is too. Unless, of course, you happen to be a Super League football club owner. So, lovely evening. It's now 13 months since Boris Johnson announced the first COVID-19 lockdown. This was an event that none of us had experienced before, and certainly we weren't trained to deal with. There was initial panic and a fear, be it for the health of our families, our friends, our businesses, our cricket teams, and many other things that we take for granted in our daily lives. To the government's great credit, their daily 5 PM briefing starring Chris Whitty, Matt Hancock and others did provide some reassurance that the world wasn't just about to end. These daily briefings, together with the generous helpings of cash splashed out by the government coffers, did provide a level of comfort and security against a backdrop of a countrywide short-term social and economic collapse. From an HCB standpoint, I've got to and must congratulate Simon Jones and his team on a regular website assistance provided to our cricket club stakeholders, setting out clearly what government financial assistance was available and how our member clubs could gain access to this funding. I hope that all of you found this useful, and I understand from Simon's latest website that in excess of £1 million has been made available to our member clubs through this funding, so well done, Simon. From HCB's own standpoint, COVID-19 brought to an end what had been so far a very successful activity and delivery plan scheduled for 2019-20. So you'll see from the following slide the range of activities hosted and facilitated by the Hampshire Cricket Board in 1920 and the stark effect that COVID-19 had on these activities between March, when the first lockdown started, and our year end being September 20. Have you got the slide there, Ben? Hopefully you can all see that. So that's our delivery programme in 2019-20. So you can see all the activities that we undertook. And on the right hand side, between March 20 and to the end of September 20, we can see that how much delivery we're able to perform on those activities. So there's quite a lot of non-delivery or minimal delivery. However, I'm delighted to say that club support and COVID-19 response, there was a full delivery. So well done to the team. Over time, both the panic and fear within HCB become replaced by a feeling of uncertainty. With lockdown partly over or partially over, should activities and leagues recommence? And if yes, in what format? Bearing in mind the restrictions on travelling, how many people are allowed per car? Could the grounds be prepared in such a short period? Not to mention the individual club thoughts on whether or not to reopen from a moral perspective. What about HCB's own funding? I said at the 2020 AGM held in July of last year that we're still uncertain as to the level of core funding we would receive from the ECB. That's our main source of income. Also, what monies would we receive from our two other main funding sources, being the Lord Taverners and Chance to Shine. We now have a run through the HCB finances for 2019-20 and refer to the points of note. So if you've got the income and expenditure there, Ben, that would be good. Thank you. So here we have our income and expenditure account taken from the HCB statutory accounts for the year to September 20, as audited by independent auditors, HJS. From that perspective, I'm pleased to be able to confirm that the audit of a recording of finances and the security over our finances produced a clean audit report. In effect, the auditors found no weaknesses in our systems of financial safeguarding and control, so a big well done to both Ben Thompson and Andy Sharp for all their hard work in robustly managing and safeguarding our finances to such a high level, so thanks to of you. So return to our accounts on the screen. So on the left-hand side, at the top, we have our income sources for the year to September 20 with the comparatives for the previous year to September 19. And on the right-hand side, we have our expenditure to September 20 and our expenditure to September 19. Referring to the points of note, so if I go down the left, county age group boys, county age group women and girls. So you may recall, October 2017, HCB commissioned Hampshire Cricket Limited to manage the county age group element of the pathway. Therefore, the income received by HCB for each of the county age group boys and county age group women and girls were passed in entirety to Hampshire Cricket Limited, who performed that activity. Going down to disability, income down greatly. This income is derived from the Lord Taverners. They kindly sponsor our disability programme. a fantastically successful program over many years run by Jeff Levick. But our funding is dictated by our level of activity. So you'll see a drop in our disability income from 2020 from 2019, roughly half. Chance to Shine. This is a program designed to bring cricket into schools, something we major on. We're on target for increased activity until March 2020. Then unfortunately, along with everything else, the schools were closed, which resulted in no cricket delivery at all from March 20. From HCB's perspective, our own income is bolstered by a 20% administration fee charged to Chance to Shine, but that's based on delivery, so less delivery meant less income for HCB. Going down to All Stars. All Stars is an initiative to attract youngsters into cricket. Historically, a specific grant was received from the HCB to fund All Stars. We did receive this grant, roughly £40,000, but this was part of our core funding. So where we got other income at the bottom, which I'll refer to in a minute, that 40,000 is within there as core income rather than specific income allocated to All Stars. Women and girls participation, there's little or no activity. Ben Thompson worked exceedingly hard on obtaining an earlier earmarked £30,000 grant, which was eventually received from ECB. So well done, Ben, for your hard work and tenacity on that one. Wickets, again, this is funded by the Lord Taverners. As with the disability programme, less activity meant less activity-related income from the Lord Taverners for ourselves. Coach Education South Central Region. This was a regional programme led by John Cook for a region including Sussex, Berkshire, Buckingham, Oxford, the Isle of Wight and Hampshire. What happened was that HCB received the income from the ECB and then paid the cost associated with the programme. But in 2019-20, ECB changed tact, whereby the grant was paid direct to the individual county cricket boards to fund their own programme rather than through the HCB, so that accounts for that drop. Going down to the next section, workforce and other. So grants, we've got the ECB stroke JRS, £331,759, a fantastic increase from the previous year, but I'll talk you through that. So 40,000 of that is, as I referred to above, relates to All Stars Cricket, which is now part of our core funding. A number of our staff were put on furlough, specifically our activators, our school activators, where we made a decision in 2018-19 to take on full-time staff who were trained in a variety of different activities and also could help with administration, as opposed to take on casual coaches. And if furlough wasn't received, we'd have had some difficult decisions to make there, because the salary charge is fairly considerable, but the 60-odd thousand received from the government in that year for furlough enabled us to keep all our staff on and ready to go in the new year. We were allotted a further £60,000 of core funding by the ECB to expand further our diversity of programmes to be delivered in 2019-20, together with our number of hours of delivery, so higher funding and more hours to be delivered. With a pretty much total shutdown of delivery from March 2020, we did not know whether we'd receive this incremental funding. But all credit and a big thank you to the ECB. The funding was indeed sent to us at the tail end of 2019-20. This funding won't be clawed back by the ECB, but will be used to further expand our range, amount and quality of delivery as soon as we're operating full steam ahead again. And just on affiliation fees, which membership fees, you'll see a note there, £9,805. So HCB waived the affiliation fees to the clubs last year. So that gave us a total income of £580,258. Going to our expenditure, reduced on most accounts due to reduction in delivery. So pretty much all those headings, there's a reduction in expenditure compared to the previous year. Salaries, as with last year, we've included on block all the salaries for all the activities. The staff mix is such that our contractual cricket activator coaches can run pretty much any of the activities that we offer. They're all very talented and very busy during all periods of non-lockdown. So our focus is very much to maximise the hours of our programme delivery, the quality of our delivery and the diversity of our programmes. Our activity success is closely monitored by our sponsors, with our grant income being closely aligned to our success in achieving the criteria set out by these sponsors. So it's not just a money for staff. We've got to actually prove we require the headcount that we've got. So in summary, the HCB achieved a surplus of £63,000 in the year to 3rd September 2020, which is largely due to the incremental ECB grant income paid to us at the end of that year. We understand the ECB have set their funding levels and associated criteria for receiving core and add-on grants up to 2025, and we're relieved to be able to tell you that we're looking forward to local recreation cricket being in a good place over the next few years. And just the last slide, Ben, which is the balance sheet. So that is our balance sheet as at the end of September 20. And those who attend regularly may recall that in the latter years, our reserves had dropped quite substantially. And this is really a result of investing in the additional resources in the form of our school activators. So these are full-time activators, staff replacing casual coaches. And often with these investments, the cost precedes the delivery. So, but now, thanks to the ECB, our reserves are now back up to just above the recommended ECB level, which provides us with a very solid base to go forward with when we return to some sort of normality, hopefully soon. Finally, can I send a very well done and thank you to Ben Thompson and his team for skillfully steering our HCB ship through some severely choppy and uncertain waters over the last year or so, and continuing into this year. A difficult job, well done and much appreciated. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Jeff. Excellent. Right. I'm pleased to say that we've got a handle on technology. So just before we ask you to approve the accounts, we will just rewind and ask you to approve the minutes of the last meeting. So if you can now select the appropriate option to approve the minutes of the 10th AGM, I would be grateful. Okay, just a few more to go. Okay. Excellent, thank you for that. And what I will now attempt to do is now ask you to approve the accounts using, all being well, the same method, but bear with me 2 seconds. Excellent. Okay, so yeah, this is for approval of the accounts that Jeff's just gone through for 2019-2020. Excellent. Okay. That's fantastic. Thank you for doing that. Okay, thanks again, Jeff, for taking us through the accounts. That was fun. That was great. We'll now move on down the agenda. But just as a reminder, if you can put any questions in the chat function, that would be much appreciated. Okay, so item 6 on the agenda is confirmation of affiliation fees. As a member of the HCB, you are required to approve the affiliation fees. As Jeff mentioned just then, we decided not to collect affiliation fees last year for obvious reasons, and we hope that went some small way to easing the financial burden for clubs. And we are, for 2021, proposing to keep the affiliation fees at the same level as 2019. And actually, in fact, they haven't been increased for a number of years, but we are going to keep them the same for 2021. We've got 3 categories of affiliation. Category 1 being for clubs based in Hampshire with 1 or more adult team and a cost of £35. Category 2, is for clubs based in Hampshire again with 1 or more adult team, but also a junior section, and that's at a cost of £85. And then lastly, associate affiliation, and that's for cricket organisations, so leagues or district associations, for example, within Hampshire, or I should say clubs outside of Hampshire, but who affiliate to their home county board as a full member. So once again, we'll test the technology, and if I can just ask you to approve those affiliation fees for 2021. Okay, excellent. Thank you for doing that. Sorry, what I should have said in the previous 2 polls is that everybody approved them. So thank you for that, as of they for the affiliation fees. Okay, we're making good progress. Item 7 is appointment of directors. Now, since the last AGM, there has been a couple of changes on the board of directors here at Hampshire Cricket Board. Firstly, in the form of ex officio directors. Now, I'm sure many of you would have known or has come across Colin Savage. Colin retired earlier in the year after many years with Hampshire Cricket Board and as company secretary. And Colin's been replaced by Andy Sharp. Obviously, I'd like to thank Colin Savage for all the hard work that he did whilst he was with us at the board, and I wish him well in his well-earned retirement. The other change to ex officio directors was Stuart Robertson. He's moved on to pastures new from Hampshire Cricket Limited, and I'm pleased to say we're joined by Giles White, who I'm sure you have heard of before. Giles will be the new representative of Hampshire Cricket Limited. So Andy, Giles, thanks for joining the board. Look forward to working with you. Secondly, in terms of directors, this time last year or during the AGM, you may recall that we said we were going to embark on recruiting 2 new directors by this AGM, in fact, and I'm pleased to report that we have achieved that. Thanks to everybody that expressed an interest in becoming a director or a non-exec director of Hampshire Cricket Board. Following the open recruitment process, we had over 40 really high caliber candidates that came forward, which obviously made it difficult to make a final selection. But after much discussion and debate, I'm pleased to say that Alex Ehrman and Ariana Neo have agreed to join the board as a non-executive or as non-executive directors. Both Alex and Ariana, between them, bring a fantastic mix of cricket, business, community, knowledge and experience. So We will introduce them properly as soon as we can. They are both on the call this evening. So Alex, Ariana, thanks again for volunteering to be a non-exec director of the board. As far as our articles are concerned, in terms of the appointment, directors do have the power of appointment. However, we would like you to, as members, to endorse the appointment of the two non-exec directors in Alex and Ariana. And so I would just ask you to do that in the same form by clicking the relevant option. Okay, excellent. Pleased to say everybody has endorsed those appointments, Ariana and Alex, so thank you again. Okay, last item on the agenda is an amendment to the articles we wish to make. HCB have recently published a new governance framework, which I'm pleased to say, having been through it in detail, most of which we do actually comply with, thankfully. However, there is one particular area that we need to raise this evening, and that's in relation to the retirement of directors. Currently in the articles, directors have to resign after 3 years, but there's actually no term limit. So what we are proposing this evening, in line with the ECB guidance, is to include a term limit of 9 years. So for the last time this evening, you'll probably be pleased to hear, if you could just approve the amendment to articles by doing the usual, please. And that change specifically you can see on screen in red there. Okay, that's brilliant. I think everybody has approved that, so thank you once again. Good stuff. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the formal AGM, and I'd like to obviously close this part of the meeting. And I'll now hand over to Simon Jones, who's going to run us through the second section. So, Si, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, my name's Simon Jones. I'm the Cricket Development Manager for clubs and leagues. So straight into introduction here. We've been working with an organisation called the SLAM probably over the last 2 years to come to an agreement, an organisation that's been working elsewhere in the country. And with us tonight, we have Matt Camp, who is the competitions manager. And really, I'd just like to throw straight over to Matt to talk about what we have planned in Hampshire in 2021 and beyond. Over to you, Matt.
Evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Good.
Simon's nodding. Good. So as Simon knows, I've got a great history of doing Zoom with with Simon and Ben, so hopefully we'll be all right tonight. Yeah, so my name's Matt Kemp. I'm the, I don't know what the right title is really, manager, owner of the SLAM. And yeah, so as Simon mentioned, we've been talking for nearly a year and a half or so about whether something that has been running in Surrey for a little while and Sussex last year, whether we can make something work in Hampshire. And so we thought that tonight, although there's been a little bit of teasing on social media over the last week, we thought tonight was the best time to formally announce what we're planning to do. So I don't know who's in charge of the slides, but if they could flick one, that'd be great. There we go. So yeah, what is it? So this is without reading it straight away, the idea of this is it's going to be a collective approach to midweek cricket in Hampshire. Obviously, you may well be aware that there are already existing competitions in various parts of the county, but the idea of the Slam is to actually find a different purpose for midweek cricket, midweek evening cricket. That is, it's nothing new, of course. You know, midweek evening cricket's been around for a long time in whatever various guise. But whereas before, I think it's been viewed very much as a bolt-on to weekend cricket, with, you know, the usual sort of thing on after a game's finished on a Saturday, scrambling around to try and find 11 people for the game you happen to have scheduled for Wednesday evening. It's always the same people playing the game. Now, obviously, it's not gone beyond anyone's notice over, you know, the last good few years that obviously numbers have declined a bit, and obviously the way people live their lives have changed and their working lives have changed. And so what we've been doing in Surrey and Sussex is using midweek cricket to get people back playing the game, because the sort of 7-8 hours that it takes on a weekend isn't particularly feasible for a lot of people now. But 2.5 hours on a midweek evening certainly is. And there's two key demographics to this. There's those people, of which I fit into, which is, you know, I can't do the weekend, but I really want to keep playing. You know, maybe when my kids get a bit older or whatever, maybe I can get back to the weekend game. So, you know, just keep my hand in and play some midweek games. But similarly, it's that younger demographic, that sort of 16 to 19, 20-year-olds that are finding other things to, you know, utilise, take up their time over the weekend, and you're not getting them so much taking on the weekend game either. But if we can keep them involved, you know, it might be when they get a bit older and maybe settle down a little bit more, that actually then they'll come back to the weekend game. So it's a key vehicle for helping keep people playing our game. And then obviously, you know, the sort of halcyon picture of it all is the more likely you've got someone who keeps playing whatever format, the more likely their kids are going to get involved in the game and all that sort of stuff. We don't want to lose them completely. So can we skip one, please? So as I said, so the Surrey Slam started from a very provincial competition that was in southwest Surrey, that I, you know, sort of stuck my hand up at an AGM to run one time, and, you know, didn't quite realise what I was getting myself into. So it's something that went county-wide in 2018, and then sort of working with the Surrey Cricket Foundation, and then working from last year with the Sussex Cricket Foundation to launch last year. It was, you know, a great year to launch, but nevertheless. And now there's over 250 teams playing that across those two counties. And through bits and pieces that I'll take you through now, we've got over 700 players back playing the game as a result. So I think that demonstrates this is not about just giving more cricket to people that are already playing. Don't be wrong, there'll be plenty of people that will want to play weekend cricket and midweek cricket, but it's about providing that opportunity to get people back. So if I can skip one, please. This is a key message I really want to get across tonight, okay? This is not a direct challenge to those existing local competitions, which I'm sure you're all, you know, many of you will be aware of. We have deliberately worked and discussed with all, you know, those competitions that already exist about, this is about enhancing them, getting more teams playing in those competitions, but similarly finding out, you know, understanding that there's a reason you know, those competitions haven't got as many teams in it as maybe they'd like. So this is about finding out what do we need to do to maybe tweak the offering a bit to get more clubs and teams involved, and therefore more people involved. But that engagement with those competitions has been there from minute one. And what I'm saying to you today, they have already heard prior to this meeting. So I really want to make that abundantly clear. This is not a threat to existing competitions. This isn't a case of, well, you play Hampshire Slam or you play Southampton Evening League or whatever it is. It's not that. This is very much a work with them. And it's a slightly different model to what, you know, we've been using in Surrey and Sussex, but the intention is exactly the same, to get more people playing the game. So flip, please. So the idea is, obviously, unsurprisingly, it's a bit too late to do this year. But nevertheless, there's a lot of work we need to do ahead of the idea of going live in 2022. And so I guess this is the start, if you like, of me saying that by hook or by crook, I want to engage with every club and team in the county over this coming season, and that will be via direct meetings. I've said direct meetings because as much as we love these things to be in person, that might obviously be quite feasible for now. So it might be Zoom calls, team calls, whatever suits. It might be with one club, one-on-one. It might be as a group of clubs from a particular area. It could just be online surveys, whatever you're most comfortable with. But I guess my plea tonight, if you like, is I really want to try and engage with every single club and find out two key things, really. If you're already engaged in midweek cricket, are you playing actually what you want to play, or are you just kind of fitting in with what's on offer because there's nothing else? Or similarly, when this is, I guess, is even the more key question is, if you're not engaged in midweek cricket right now, why not? And what would it take? What sort of format? What sort of frequency? All the variables we can think of that would help you engage with midweek cricket. So that's what I want to try and achieve over the next 2 to 3 months, is to one way or another have a dialogue with you. Next slide, please. And then the idea is, so using with that information, which will be considerable, is then to work with those existing competitions to establish, is actually what's being offered in those areas the right thing? It might well be the right thing for a certain number of clubs and teams, but actually we've got a sizable collection of clubs and teams that this doesn't work for. So it'll be working with them over the course of the autumn to put together a package of a midweek offering that works for the majority of those clubs and teams that really actually do want to engage with midweek cricket. And I fully expect one corner of the county to not look like the other corner. It might well be a different frequency, or a different sort of format to the competition, or whatever it is. That's fine. For those of you that may be familiar with what's going on in Sussex and Surrey, yes, it happens that it's one particular format across the county. But the reason for that is that there was no midweek cricket to speak of really in those counties when the Slam came along. So you have to sort of start with something and you take it from there. Obviously, that's not the case in Hampshire, so we're going to be a bit more flexible, which is absolutely fine. But the idea, like I said, that doesn't bother me. Not everyone has to dance to one particular tune. It'll just be a case of doing the best we can to get as many people, as many clubs and teams engaged as possible. So that's a tricky task, but the one that we're really looking forward to. And those competitions that we've engaged with have been extremely positive about the idea of it, because they have the same mindset. At the end of the day, they're there to get more people playing the game. That's why they give up their time to do what they're doing. And so they're very keen to maximise the numbers participating in, their little pockets of the county. Next one, please. So before I get onto these various bits, obviously I can't tell you right now what that's going to look like. But what I did want to go through tonight was the ethos of the Slam, if you like, and the key principles, and explain what each of those are, and so that, in essence, to tell you what to expect. I can't tell you exactly what the formats might be, but to give you an idea. So those sort of key headings. So we'll go left to right and down. So fast. The point being of midweek cricket is that, especially early May and sort of getting into early August, you're fighting against the light, in those periods in particular. So we can't have a game that just drifts. But there's a twofold point to being fast. So obviously there's a logistical challenge. So the game needs to be fast, sort of between 2 and 2.5 hours. But at the same time, it needs to be fast from an sort of an excitement perspective as well. There's a reason so many people watch T20. Now, I'm not saying the level achieved on the village green is going to be the same, but the intensity and the enjoyment that brings, particularly to a younger demographic, is key. So it needs to be a decent lick, the way this game's played. So little things can be brought in, like having bowling 10 overs from one end and then doing one turnaround rather than constantly churning every single over, which easily saves 20 minutes, I can assure you. The fielding restrictions come in, you know, in a similar sort of way, and run-up restrictions for the bowler, so we don't have somebody trotting in from the boundary every ball. Saves a load of time. Simple little things like ball retrieval rules. So obviously, you know, a village ground has a hedge invariably collecting no many balls per night. You know, well, the batting team goes and gets that. The fielding team doesn't go and waste time going in there and, you know, killing the speed of the game. Little things like that the Slam brings in and creates a culture around, just to keep the game going, like I said, from a logistical perspective, but also from an enjoyment, excitement perspective. Flexible. I know that one of the biggest challenges, obviously, in terms of putting games on in midweek is the fact that obviously so many clubs have thriving junior sections, women's sections, every section possible. And of course, if you turn around and put a competition down that was playing every Wednesday night, you're going to lose a significant percentage of clubs' teams that just can't participate. So what has worked extremely well in Surrey and Sussex is providing fixture windows that provides that flexibility for teams to mutually agree dates that work according for the host team. So I fully expect to see more of that, which maybe isn't so much the case for existing competitions that are in the county. So I think there's definitely a commitment to embracing that principle. The fairness element. So the key thing about the Slam is, and the key, bearing in mind the key ethos is providing more cricket for more people. The Slam is not for the upper levels of the recreational game. Those guys have more than enough cricket already, and they've got their own sort of league-based T20 competitions to participate in. There's a reason so many competitions have gone to the wall over the years, because the big boys just dominate and everyone below that gets sick of participating. So the Slam utilises eligibility rules to level up the playing field, if you like. So that will cut off the top level of player that can't play in it. And similarly, it will restrict, within a particular window, it will restrict the higher divisions of players. So based on kind of their league CV, if you like, their weekend cricket CV, be based on that. So that, you know, the higher level players, not the top, but, you know, upper the middle sort of thing, they can participate, but they might be restricted. And certainly the goal is to have a multi-tier approach. So, for example, in Surrey and Sussex this year, we've launched a cup and a plate level. So you've got the cup, which is still very competitive, not for the highest level, but still competitive. And there are various restrictions within there to kind of even it up. But then the plate is very much, you know, the real, the kind of, you know, the sort of the lower level, more villagey type level, which is even more appropriate for getting people back into the game that maybe haven't held it back for, you know, a good 4, 5, 6 years, or turned their arm over. And we provide an environment for them to be far more comfortable for coming back into the game. So I fully envisage that we would at some point be able to have a tiered effect so that it becomes much fairer. I think the biggest example I can give of that in, you know, now 4 years of finals days and stuff in Surrey in particular. Only one team out of what is 16 has ever been to finals day twice. And in fact, the finalists from 2019, none of them made it past the quarterfinals in 2020. So that ethos, it's going to be tweaked depending on how it works for each county. But you can see there is obviously a fairness there. There isn't a domination already. I know it's a small sample size, but it seems to be working. And I guess that kind of fits hand in hand with the inclusive element. Simple things like, things that you're not, you know, going to be particularly surprised by, but, you know, having not out batting retirements, for example, so one guy can't go and just dominate from ball one and score 100 and no one ever gets a chance. The normal sort of bowling over restrictions, you know, so things that are quite commonplace in bowling, you know, quite commonplace in sort of limited overs cricket, just to ensure that we have that inclusivity element. The bold element. So one of the key things, you know, one of the exciting things about whether it's IPL or the 100, whether you like it or not, you know, is the boldness of the marketing, right? So each team has its logo and its catchy little nickname, and I do appreciate some might not like it; it's a bit Americanized and whatever. But the reality is, it appeals certainly to the younger demographic. So the Slam is always committed to, if a club or team doesn't have it already, provides a logo to go with, a bold, sort of simplistic but bold logo to go with whatever their team name is. Something which is a challenge, but it's a key thing, is it? And the reason that's key is it helps provide an identity to that midweek team within a club, right? So, like I said at the outset of this presentation, midweek cricket was always a bolt-on to weekend cricket, and it was just like viewed that way. Whereas it has to be more than that. In order to utilise it as a vehicle for getting people back into the game, it has to have its own identity. And by doing that, although it started a bit as a gimmick, these logos, actually they're key to how a club positions the midweek teams. And so, the idea is those logos are out there, and it helps with advertising, if you like, both internally within your club and beyond. And then that links nicely to the social elements. Obviously, cricket, the great thing about cricket is the social aspect to it. But we need to bring that up to the 21st century, so that the Slam embraces Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and now getting to grips with TikTok, and encourages the teams that participate to provide, various content, and we see cheesy little things sometimes, like little online polls for the best logo and stuff like that. But also more and more teams are kind of getting cameras and streaming their matches and things like that. And once you put on coloured kit and all that sort of stuff, it all enhances the experience, not just for those that are actually on the ground, but those that can't be but can see it from afar. Now, this all sounds all great, but this has to be affordable. What the Slam is not is an excessive money-making exercise, as other competitions might well have been before. So there is no point in putting this together to create this vehicle to encourage people back into the game if you then charge the teams a fortune to participate in it, which then obviously gets passed down to the player. So to give you, and I can't say for certain how the Hampshire will be pitched, but to give you an idea, both Surrey and Sussex this year, it cost a team 60 quid to enter, and that included 5 match balls. Okay, so I don't think when you spread that over the 5 guaranteed matches that Surrey and Sussex happened to receive this year, that's and then obviously then go on beyond that, but everyone's guaranteed at least 5 per fortnight. Then I don't see that when you spread it over a number of players involved is far from expensive, I would say. And then it's not just that, of course. So I've deliberately got commercial arrangements with ball supplier and kit manufacturer, so that actually, if you want to buy more of the pink match balls, you can, and they're not excessive at 7 quid, but they are good grade A quality. Similarly, if you want to go down the route of colour kit, and that is by no means mandated, I wanted to ensure that there is a truly affordable option for that. So we have a partnership with a company that produces whatever design you wanted, with whatever images, etc. Sponsorship doesn't make a difference. Just for 30 quid for a set of a cap, shirt and trousers. There's no mandate to take up that option, but the point being is it demonstrates the Slam's commitment to making sure that every aspect of this can be affordable. Whereas I think, particularly on the kit side, there are options out there, plenty, don't be wrong, but I think for a team or club that might only be playing sort of 6-7 games a year, there has to be an appropriate point for that kit, for the cost of that kit. Anyway, so it's just sort of an example of the commitment to it. And then similarly, we encouraged our teams and clubs to participate to reflect that ethos by having midweek specific memberships, because we're talking about attracting people that aren't going to play weekend. You might get them every now and again, don't get me wrong, but the reality is they're not in weekend cricket for a reason. So we're not going to achieve that by welcoming them back to midweek cricket and then stuffing them for a membership fee that is applicable to someone who's playing 17, 18 games, weekend games over the year. So clubs that have participated in the Slam have been very good at just tweaking their outlook on it and making it more attractive for people to join as midweek members. The convenient element, all well and good having games that are nice and quick, but absolutely pointless if you're having to travel 45 minutes to an hour to your game. So the commitment is that games stay as localised as possible for as long as possible. So you know, using the Surrey and Sussex example, everyone is in a group, a round robin group stage at the start with their either their 3 or 5 most closest opponents, and they play that before they then play off against the equivalent position from the neighbouring group. But it all stays as geographically tight as possible. So the only time you start playing a team that might be across the other county would be at some sort of final, across the other side of the county, would be at some sort of finals day, which would be on a Sunday or a bank holiday or whatever it is, which obviously and the idea of being quite centralised so that the travelling at that time isn't so much of an issue, but on the midweek evening, it's nice and tight. Momentum building, so I've kind of hinted at this, is that there's no point, you're trying to build midweek cricket and get people to come and participate in midweek cricket, there's no point entering a competition where you could be out after one round. So the commitment is to have these group stages at the start, so that there is that opportunity to build up momentum. And then even when you have, obviously any competition, you have to reach some sort of knockout stage at some point. Even after that, there is a commitment to working with those that have been knocked out to play friendly matches in those sort of fixture gaps as we go along. So even if you've kind of been officially knocked out of the competition after game 6, you can still easily get another couple of games in, and we do sort of fixture forum and all that sort of stuff, so people can find teams to play against and work out dates, etc. So maximising the ability, the opportunity for people to get out there and play. Showpiece finals. So we're working very hard with the guys at Hampshire Cricket Board to ensure that the Hampshire Slam culminates at an appropriate venue. I can assure you we're shooting as high as possible on that one, but I don't want to embarrass anybody. So look, that's a work in progress, and obviously it's something that's looking more towards the back end of 2022. So there's a long way to go on that, and obviously various fixture lists and stuff need to be worked around. So look, I can't say too much on that, but what I would say is, to give you an example, the Sussex finals, all being well, COVID related wise, will be played under the lights at Hove this year, for example. So that's the commitment that we that's an example of the working relationship with the county boards that we have. And then the final point, I guess, is efficiency. And I can assure you this shouldn't reflect badly on anyone or any other entity. But the Slam is designed to be as sleek as possible in terms of admin, and it's all online, it's all mobile friendly. There's no in-person meetings whatsoever. Balls are delivered by postage, and you don't have to come to somewhere in the centre of the county to come pick them up, anything like that. I do appreciate that there's a degree of an impersonal element to that. However, the big positive of it that I've seen over the last 4 years is that by making it that more mobile friendly, more and more clubs and teams are putting it in the hands of much younger members to manage, not just obviously captain the team that's participating, but also to do the admin around it as well, which isn't arduous by any stretch of imagination. But what it's doing is it's actually helping build the next generation of committee members, if you like, for the club. I must admit, when I set out on this, that wasn't really something I was thinking about, but it's been a kind of happy accident, if you like, that this isn't just about building our younger players. It's also about building those guys that, let's be honest, they're going to be extremely valuable in the coming decade or so, because the demographics of people that do undertake those roles in the vast majority of clubs, it's going to be a challenge. I think we're all aware of that. So that's kind of an introduction to the Slam and the Hampshire Slam. I'm not sure what the idea was, whether to do any Q&A or not. But if not tonight, then you can find out more via the social media elements there, which is all at Hampshire Slam, or the website there, which hasn't gone live just yet. Give me another day or two because it will go. But the email is certainly live. So if you wanted to find out any more in addition to what I've given tonight, then you're more than welcome to get in touch. Thank you.
Fantastic. That's great. Thanks, Matt. I think looking on the time side of things, what we'll do is if we can take questions direct to Matt via email or the social media or email myself, simon.jones@geosbowl.com, and we can relay them and come back to them. You know, certainly plenty of information to go on. A recording of this will be sent out afterwards in the slides as well for you to kind of refer to. So that'll be good as well. Right, well, thanks very much for that, Matt. Much appreciated. Well, thanks very much for that, Matt. Fantastic. I think what we'll do on the basis of time constraints is that we will take queries via email on that, either to myself or to Matt. But I think what we'll do now is move on with Neil Higginson. He is the England and Wales Cricket Board's Facilities and Planning Manager. We're going to deal with a couple of things just to round off the meeting with him. First, before Neil in a second will talk on support for clubs. What I would say is if you just have any questions on the logistics of the upcoming season, put them in the chat and we'll take them in the second item as well. But if I can throw over now to Neil to talk about the funding side of things and ECB support for clubs. Thank you.
Evening, everybody. I'll try and keep this brief and succinct. I know that Ben and Simon have had some briefing yesterday on the recreational game call, as indeed with the county board chairs as well. And there'll be further information coming out, hopefully within the next week to 10 days or so. But anyway, just to give you a flavour of what's likely to come. Creating welcoming environments is a guide that we've worked on extensively during COVID. We've briefed most of the county board staff now. We have a final mop-up tomorrow. In due course, that will then be shared with the Cricket Network. And basically, this is a guide for clubs to look at the environment that they play their cricket in, from the moment that somebody arrives at the ground to the moment that somebody leaves. It's quite an extensive document. I won't put Simon and Ben on the spot, but I'm biased and say that it's a very good document, which I think it is, because I'm a club man as well. I'm a coach and actively involved with my local club, and I think it works very well. Linked into that is the county grant fund. So the plan was pre-COVID that would already be launched. Obviously COVID arrived, everything's been delayed. And because of a few other things that were mentioned yesterday, the county grant fund will probably now be launched the end of May, beginning of June this year, which is a devolved budget to every county board across England and Wales for them to manage centrally to support clubs with creating welcoming environments. So that could be projects around patios, improving changing rooms, women and girls play, non-turf pitches and alike. But it's down to the county boards to manage it as they see fit, with my support as required. Between now and then, there should be another element of support coming for clubs to support them with camps and holiday activity during the summer months. We're hoping to target 2,000 clubs. So it's quite a significant amount of money, but the main message that's coming through is there is more money coming to the recreational game, and we're trying to make it easier for clubs to access that. So really it's a case of watch this space, really. The county grant fund, just to quickly close that one off, is a more strategic pot of money. So that's a rolling budget that will roll. Initially, it was a plan to roll for 5 years, but will probably now roll for 4 years. So if you're a club at the moment who's got an idea, maybe not for this year, but maybe for next year, then that's absolutely fine. Talk to Ben and Simon as appropriate to get that cracking. Simon, is there anything I've missed?
No, I think that's just about covered it all. I think we haven't got any questions in the chat. I think maybe we've got a couple more on sort of on the guidance side of things, with sides starting up, and we're all starting to get outdoors now. I think the first one that came up was the issue of spectators at matches under the COVID guidance.
Simply put, don't have any. That's easy if you're a self-contained ground. So my old club, for example, owns its own site, has one access point in and out, and can manage who's coming into the ground. So they know the players, they know the opposition, they know the umpires, that's it, a nice secure bubble. If you're in a public open space like my current club, not so easy to manage. And the message there is take a pragmatic view. You know who your players are, you know who your officials are, so keep them separate and keep them cordoned off, which is the case for my club. People will come and watch, and there's very little that you can do about that with regard to QR codes and such like. We're not advocating that members of the club should walk around the boundary and chastise people for coming to watch. If they choose not to maintain social distancing guidelines, well, there's very little that you can do about that. So just be pragmatic and take an open view, really. It is a challenge. My club chairman is aware of that. So, for example, on a Saturday, the area is coned off for the players to sit in. The bar is not open. Facilities aren't open. However, after the game, once everything's calmed down, we know who the spectators are, we know who the club members are, and then he opens the hospitality from there. But each club will take their own view. I think that there was a couple of good examples that were shared today on the WhatsApp group that Ben, Simon and myself are privy to from across the country. So it could be that those may be shared via Hampshire Cricket Board in due course as examples of best practice.
Yeah, we'll certainly do that, Neil. And I think one thing to add on the question of hospitality, questions, it is a decision for individual clubs to kind of follow the guidance. So, for example, one of the things that is permitted is for hospitality to be open while cricket is taking place. However, this is only either takeaway or table service, which is subject to the 2 households stroke rule of 6, which I think we all remember from last year. The other major question that has come up as well, last year there was a numerical limit on the size of match groups, but Neil, that's slightly different this year?
As far as I'm aware, there is no numerical limit. It's based on the square meterage of your facility. So if you want to lose the will to live, by all means, you can look at the government guidance regarding grassroots sports for public and sports providers, or you can go to the restaurant, pubs, bars and takeaway guidance as well. But it's really a case of taking a footprint of your facility, that's your whole ground, for example, working out square meterage and then timesing that by the number of people that you could have there. That's really the guideline. Somebody's just put a comment in, I've just noticed, around football. People are watching local football teams and social distancing areas are marked out for families and spectators. Yep, I have no problem with that. Football does tend to follow its own guidelines, unfortunately. We are dictated by the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, but if a club, for example, wants to have its own social areas marked out, bear in mind the rule of 6 and 2 household groups, then personally I don't see a problem with that.
That's right. Thanks for that, Neil. I think it is while at the moment under the current stage, the emphasis is for no spectators. There are exceptions to that. For example, parents who need to be there for children for safeguarding reasons. There are others, but it's all in the guidance. And I'd advise everyone to refer to hcb.co.uk/COVID-19. I think that I'll just finish on one point then here. Neil and I actually recorded a webinar covering this and other subjects as well, which went out last Friday, that's had about 150 views on our YouTube channel already. So this goes into just a little bit more detail than we've gone into tonight, and we will ensure that we send the link out with the notes to this AGM. But thanks very much for taking the time to come out, Neil, and much appreciate you giving the updates on funding support and guidance. So I have just one more point before I throw back to the boss, Ben Thompson, and that is the prize draw. We have 3 winners. Thank you everyone for registering on the Google form and putting your details in the chat. And I can confirm that the 3 winners are as follows: Aldershot Cricket Club, Collingbourne Cricket Club, and Winchester Warriors Junior Cricket Association. And we shall be in touch with you in connection with your £100 serious vouchers. Thank you, and back to you, Ben.
Excellent. Thanks, Si. Thanks, Neil. Okay, that brings us to the end of this evening's session. Apologies for going slightly over time there, but just before I close, just would like to say a few thank yous. Firstly to Matt and Neil for giving up their time and presenting that information, but also to you as clubs, club volunteers and organisations. I appreciate you've got a lot on, so freeing up time in your calendars is much appreciated. As I say, I know it's busy at this time of year. Hopefully you found the content informative. If you do have any questions, then feel free to ping an email or phone anybody in the development team, and we'll be pleased to respond. So, as I say, thank you very much for joining, and I wish you all the very best for the season. Thanks very much.